Hey guys, it's Leslie with another edition of Virtue and Grace Virtual Girls Night In. Tonight we are talking about the question of whether to send our children back to school or have them do school at home virtually. And for those who are choosing virtual school options, we are talking about some tips and ways to help them be most successful this school year. I have three friends who are joining us who are educators and have lots to say to help us parents as we make this all important decision. So, thank you for joining. I hope you enjoy. I'm going to go ahead and go through introductions for our panelists, our fine educators. We're going to introduce themselves and kind of tell their background.
Good evening, everyone. I am Monica Crawford. I've been in education now for about 21 years and pretty much worked at all grade levels from kinder through junior college, and pretty much have done a lot of the different various subjects as well. Currently, I'm a counselor, high school, early college, high school counselor.
All right. Thank you so much, Miss Monica. All right. And Monica is one of my classmates. I have to put that out there. Shout out to Carter High School, CC, too bad, too bold. All right. Thank you for joining, Monica. All right. Next, we're going to go to Miss Chastity. Miss Chastity.
Okay, I'm Chastity Armstead. I am going to be starting my 26th year in education when school commences in the fall. I've taught everything from kindergarten through fifth grade. I've done a lot of instructional work and instructional focused work in central office, and I served as the principal on the elementary level. So,
Wonderful.
Yeah, that's it.
Thank you. Chastity is also a fellow alumni, Carter High School. And I have to share this. Chastity is a legacy in preschool education because her mother and aunt were the founders, the creators of the Perfect Place, the legendary Perfect Place.
Yes.
Preschool back in the day. I mean, that was a school that was, everybody in the community wanted to have their children to be part of the Perfect Place. So Chastity's definitely a product of that fine legacy of education.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All righty, so next we're going to have Miss Diamond Dotson. If you could, please give us your introduction, Diamond.
Hello, everyone. My name is Diamond Dotson. I have been an educator or in the education field for about 7 years now. I've taught pre-K, pretty much everything up until about 4th grade. This is my first year that I'll actually be doing 5th grade. And so, sure. Well, I'm used to, so I've always just done like pre-K up to 3rd grade. 4th was a stretch for me. 5th grade is just I feel like my principal is doing way too much too soon. And we just gonna pray for this year. And I've also done 4th grade ESL bilingual, and that's what I'm used to. I'm used to ESL students, and now they put me regular program and in 5th grade. So
yes,
how that goes.
Awesome. Thank you, Diamond. Well, one thing I could say about educators, and I guess anybody who has decided to stick with education, is that you have to be flexible. Flexible to what's needed in the school, flexible for things like this that could come up that you have to adapt to. I taught middle school for 3 years. And you, as most of y'all know, it's been a long time since I've been in education. I found out that was not my calling. Although I loved it, I had a lot of great relationships that I developed and still keep in touch with a lot of those students. But my hat's off to you guys, especially, 20 years, 26 years. So hats off. So that's something that I, definitely take note of, is that you have to be flexible and be open to what God has for you, as a Christian educator. And especially now with what you all are having to consider, because I know each one of you have children. And, whether it's dealing with their own education or daycare or whatever the situation is, it's not easy for you all to be in that position where you're having to support people who are asking you all tons of questions, but then you're also having to make those considerations about what's best for your own children. So hats off to you guys. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. I have a few questions that I'm going to ask our educators here and ask each one of them to answer those questions. And we'll kind of go in that same order. And after that, open it up for any questions that our educators have of the other ladies that are on the call or any parents that join that have questions. All righty. So let's go ahead and get started. And so Monica, this question will go to you first. So the first question says, what components should parents consider when choosing whether to go with the virtual option, the in-person option?
I think it's a various components. You have to think about the individual child first, and health and safety. I know a lot of parents are thinking about their own, their work environment, if they have to go back to work, how their work environment's going to be. But I think the child's safety is of the utmost concern when you're talking about returning back to school.
Thank you. And Ms. Chastity.
I agree. Definitely the safety of the child, looking just to ensure, of course, a child with, any pre-existing conditions, any immunity issues, probably not the wisest idea to send them back as we're kind of playing this little, for lack of better terms, guinea pig game, because, we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen when we return. We don't know what the result is going to be. So definitely parents that have children that have, compromised immunity systems, I would say, just let it play out first before deciding to send them back. And then as Monica previously stated, the child, looking at the child, some children just don't do well at home. Some children are their best selves at school. So also considering that, and then considering if the parent is able to provide the child with everything they need if they choose the at-home learning. Because it's the difference between homeschooling or staying at home for school.
Yes, it
So
is.
making that decision.
Very, very good point. Difference. So you said it's a difference between homeschooling and staying at home for school.
Exactly.
Yes. Very, very good point. Thank you. All right, we'll come back to that in a little bit as we continue with this discussion. All right, so I'm gonna go to Diamond. What do you think are considerations that parents should be looking at? What components, what do you say is most important for us to look at when deciding whether we do virtual or in person?
I pretty much agree with everything that's been said because I know for my niece and my nephews, it was really hard for them to kind of grapple with the fact that they aren't going back to school. So really kind of looking at the child and understanding what they need. I also have a special needs nephew. And so kind of just, it was almost in his eyes, it was almost like he was just being taken out of school, and so really consider the child, consider the needs of the child, especially if they, are special needs. He's autistic, so he has this schedule that's in his mind, and especially since it's been from August, well, it was August up until March, he had this whole idea of every day that his day looked like.
Yeah.
So when that was taken away, it was just kind of like he did not react to it well, and that was kind of really hard on my sister because she would have to go to work, and so he had different, I guess, care providers in and out. And so really considering the child and what they need and understanding how they learn is definitely something to consider.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And that kind of leads into this next question. And I didn't have this in there, but I'm going to add to this question about special education. But the question is, from what you understand, because I say from what you understand, because I know a lot of these guidelines and what's planned to be put in place at the various school districts and at the actual local school level, things are changing. things are developing. And then I also understand, and you guys know kind of the inside of the discussions that are being had, because I understand that the superintendent or the principal has to share kind of from a standpoint that, we have it, not have it together, but, we're working on a plan, they're poised, they're, want to kind of put everybody at ease. But I understand that there is that other side that we don't see, where you're really trying to figure everything out, in your staff meetings or among your peers in education. So from what you understand right now, what accommodations can be made if for, students who will be coming to the school in person, what accommodations can reasonably be made for that schooling environment, with the social distancing needs that we have, with the concerns about testing, all of that. So I'm gonna go back to Chastity. What kind of things can be put in place? I'm thinking about the parents who just, like y'all were saying, some kids at home school doesn't work. So if that is the case and that parent is saying, I understand it's just not gonna work for me, what kind of things can you see that can reasonably be done to put those parents' minds at ease?
Okay, I think I'm going to approach it from two different ways. For the general ed students who just, because when you're looking at the needs of the children and what the parents can provide for them, for our general ed kids, it may be that the parents don't have a level of education to provide it. Yeah. So, I would tell my parents during our, spring session, reach out to me, it's okay. Have the kids. I taught fourth grade, so they were old enough and they had my number. So I'm like, have the kids reach out to me. Don't tell them, no, don't call her or don't bother her. Have the kids reach out. We also have an interventionist on our campus that we didn't have school on Fridays virtually. So on Fridays, the interventionist will make herself available all day virtually for those students that may needed that extra help or may not have grasped the concept, as the teacher was teaching it. And so she did that for our general ed students. For our special ed students, we had the same thing on Wednesdays and Fridays, that those special ed teachers who were normally pushing into the classroom with those students would also provide that time one-on-one for those students. And so it took 2 days for the special ed students because we had a large number, but they were able to get that one-on-one attention and get the lessons broken down and get it explained to them, because it's hard to do it in a group Zoom setting. But after debriefing with special ed teachers, it was very beneficial for those students. And, talking to the parents, they really appreciated that my district took that extra step to ensure that their services, of course, weren't being met one-on-one, person in person, but they, we did come up with a plan so that those services were able to be received.
Okay, and then going forward in the next few weeks or however many weeks it is, I understand there are some delays and openings for some school districts. How do you foresee social distancing working for kind of an all-day school? How do you foresee it? I know you probably haven't worked out everything at your school and you're waiting for guidance, but how do you foresee it working?
Right, and so it's kind of ironically funny because we're starting the Tuesday after Labor Day, when what I wish is that we would wait until the Labor Day possibly surge was over. So maybe 2 weeks after Labor Day to start. But I mean, we're going with what we've been given. But I'll have fifth grade. I feel like for the upper elementary, it's going to be okay. I really empathize with those lower elementary teachers. I have a first grader. She hugs everybody. She, she touches things. And so I just really empathize with them. While I don't envy them, because they're gonna have their work cut out for them in trying to maintain social distancing with a 5 and 6 year old who doesn't understand, what happens. Because I can explain to my fifth grade, if this is what's gonna happen if we get touchy feely, if we get too close. But my 6-year-old's not gonna understand that, and so I'm really interested to see how the programs are gonna be set up for the lower grades differently, because it can't be a one-way plan for entire elementary. So.
Yep. Thank you. I'm going to switch to Diamond real quick, Monica, and then come back to you, because Diamond, I know that you started out teaching. Was it kinder or first?
Pre-K.
Pre-K. Okay. So for you, and I know you're not going to be with the little ones this year, but how do you foresee that for the kids, who are coming to school? how do you foresee that that could reasonably, I've heard people talk about what challenges there could be. I've seen all the memes, I've seen the cartoons.
Right.
But, you know, what could you envision that could make that work and put parents' minds at ease who don't have a choice?
And you mean as far as like the little ones, the pre-K, kindergarten,
Yeah,
first?
yeah,
You know, I don't know. I just feel like it's almost, I don't want to say impossible, but it's going to be very hard to try to reason with a pre-K student or a kindergarten or first grade student on why they should maintain their social distancing, because I know at our school we have like community circles, social circles. So it's how we learn how to, you know, touch with our hands and use our words and whatnot. So I feel like, and you know, they even have their little spots on their carpets, on the carpet. And so to me, I just feel like it might be a little hard to try to get a pre-K or kindergarten student to understand something like that,
yeah,
as, you know, a social distancing, because we want them to respect other people's space, but I just feel like at that young age, them like really understanding why it's so important to maintain your distance because you can get sick. I just think it's gonna be so hard, and to me, it's gonna be really sad because my little babies, I hug them all. You know, every
mm-hmm.
time they come in, that's how we greet each other. You know, when we say goodbye, you know, you get a hand hug. So I'm just
Yeah,
like trying to teach them like, no, bye, go,
yeah,
nope. You know, to me, that's just really hard for a young person to grasp.
yeah. I agree. I know one thing that will be interesting to see is for myself having a second grader and my great nephew who is going to be a kindergartner. You know, the whole social gathering for families has changed. So I wonder if if they would kind of come in, or at least some of them, with that same type of condition, because it used to be, you know, just all kinds of hugs when we would see, you know, my daughter and my great nephew would see each other. But I notice now,
Right.
you know, there's not so much of that because they know and they've kind of been conditioned. And that part is sad to me, you know, even in a
Mhm.
family situation, it's kind of like, you know, I see him,
Right.
and we're just kind of like, hey buddy, you know, where it used to be the whole hugging and picking up and all that. And I wonder if
Yeah.
some of that will just kind of transfer over, because it's been 4 months, right? So most of the
Mhm.
kids, I don't know how many, but a lot of them have been conditioned, unfortunately, over this past 4 months about just a different way to interact with people in general.
Right.
I wonder if that would just carry over, you know, into the school setting, but we will see. Time will tell.
Exactly.
Time will tell.
Unfortunately.
Yes. Okay. Well, I'm going to go over to Monica. I know you work in the high school, and I want to hear your perspective about, you know, how do you think, you know, things could reasonably, you know, be effectively, or how the classroom, the hallways, you know, all of that. How can you effectively accomplish that in the high school setting?
Well, the high school setting, they're touchy-feely.
Yeah, I feel too. Yeah, in a whole different way.
They're very touchy-feely. So social distancing is going to be difficult for us at the high school level. But yeah, so we've looked at several different avenues. We've looked at having A day and B day students. We've looked at having juniors and seniors all completely online, freshmen and sophomores, in person. There are different things that we've looked at that we just have not completely come up with a solution as of yet. The thing is, at my school, the kids go to college as well. And so our incoming freshmen possibly won't be able to take those college classes because we have to do introductory lessons to teach them how to navigate the college side of it. So this year's incoming freshmen, which will be the first year we've had to do this, they won't be able to take the college classes like the other grade levels have been able to pass. So that's one of my things that I'm kind of heartbroken about, because I'm so used to them babies coming in, starting them college classes, and they're getting on the road, excited about it. And that's one of the reasons kids come to our campus is because of those classes. And
so let me ask you that, Monica. So when you say so is this dual credit that they're able to take, or?
Right. So our kids
They are not
earn
able to get dual credit.
be able to, because we do so our goal is to set students up as the best in the best way possible. So we don't want to just throw them in college classes without giving them the introductory lessons that we do, offer the classes that we offer so that we can help them. And that's done better in person. We're able to work with students one-on-one. It's a team of us that work together, and we're all able to work with every single student one-on-one to make sure they understand clearly what they need to do to navigate that college system. Our goal is not to have you to come to the school and not be able to get the associate's degree. The students come to the school, we want to make sure they get the associate's degree. And so we try to set them up in the best way possible. And doing that is at hands-on. That's why I was telling Chastity she's going to love science, because at hands-on opportunity for those kids to really understand, okay, this is how I navigate this system. This is how I navigate, this is how these systems work together. And so that's still up in the air as far as that. Even trying to navigate how, if we have in-person school, the students walking down the hallways a certain direction, are the students going to be allowed to get on the elevators? I mean, just different things. We'll have certain stairs set up a certain way. Our campus is really open, and so even the cafeteria, a lot of our students hang out in what's called our courtyard. And there's a basketball court out there. There's seating out there, and so just trying to keep high school is social. Thing is not going to work either.
Oh my goodness.
So we're just gonna, new systems, great minds, and like I said, coming on a forum like this, getting different ideas from different people. I know my second grader, as he understands the importance of social distancing. Now, does he want to do social distancing? That's the other thing. I have a second grader, and the thing of it is, he doesn't want to do social. He's, he wants to see his friends. He want to go play soccer, So yeah, I'm supposed to touch people. I'm supposed to keep washing my hands every 5 minutes. I'm not supposed to hug my friends. I can't give them a high five. And so, yeah, he understands it. But the thing of it is, their emotional side of this, the mental side of this is, wow, I'm having to stay away from people when I really want to be with these people, be around these people, touch these people, engage with these people.
What advice do you have for parents? Because you talked earlier about homeschooling being different than doing school at home.
I think the most important thing is to ensure students have a workspace. I'm currently doing summer school for our 5th graders, and so I'm just kind of, really expressing to them after every session. I have a chat with the parents just to let them know, as they're transitioning, that it's important for them to have that space to work in. It's also a challenge, and I try to keep open relationships with my parents. I had a parent today that told me, okay, I get it. I have 6 kids, and so I don't have 6 spaces. And so, I was very, empathetic with her. I have 2 kids, but they're 15 years apart, so I don't have that issue. And so really just being able to look at, the lens that other people are coming from. And so I just kind of explained to her, make sure you share that, if we have to go into virtual school, make sure you share with his teachers that, there are 6 children here. And so when his mic is not on mute, you may hear somebody else doing a lesson over here, because that's what I heard today. And so, just being honest, the parents, like I told her, I said, I'm glad you told me, because we have to know those things so that we can, make whatever, preparations we can make. Fortunately, my district is a district where it's one-on-one technology. So the kids are not having to share devices, which I know a lot of districts are set up where they're having to share devices. It's one per family. So again, just expressing to those teachers, my child may only be able to get on once a week, because I have, a family of 4 or 5, and they have to share devices. So really, for parents, just communicating what if there are any struggles, communicating what those are, and then not expecting the kids to get this right. They're not. It's not what they're used to. And so I tell my parents all the time, don't be so hard on them. We're all learning this together. And so just give them a chance to get in and navigate this. Also, I was explaining to the parents, the fall is going to look totally different than what the spring looked like. In the spring, we were all thrown into this, so we just kind of did the best we could. I think I taught 1 day a week to my students. If we do it in the fall, it'll be a complete virtual teaching plan. And so, just getting the parents to understand it will look a lot different in the fall if we have to go virtual, because we've had time to plan and get everything together.
Yeah, I'm curious to know how that's gonna look. Because from what I understand, there will be a specific schedule. There's the expectation that they will, all be starting at the same time. I'm asking for prayers for that personally because it's been so long, that we haven't had to wake up at a certain time. The other thing I'm praying about, because you mentioned, communicating with the teachers, that there are several kids, in the house and maybe limited devices or noise in the background, that they will be understanding of that. I'm glad to know, or talk to passionate teachers, like yourself, who do take those things into consideration. I understand that all teachers are not that way. But I know that that's definitely a possibility for us, because there's 5 kids here. One who will be doing college online. But and they do have a device to use, but our issue is usually noise. It's usually noise because their schedules don't always align. So when somebody's on break, and certain kids who are very vocal, like to just do a scream, do a little loud stretch,
Mhm.
and those kinds of things. So that has been a challenge for us as far as the noise level in the house. But I'm glad you said that, because I shouldn't assume that the teachers in the school won't be understanding. I should go ahead and at least let them know and ask for that understanding. So, all right, so I'm going to ask that same question over to Diamond. If you can share, for those of us who have littles, who are choosing the virtual option, what are some ideas, some thoughts that you have about how we could be successful with our little ones?
Let's see. One thing that and I met with my parents before this whole thing kicked off, and pretty much I think, yeah, like Miss Chastity said, I told them, I'm like, hey, everybody's learning. We're all learning this at the same time. Try to be as graceful to them as possible. I had parents contact me like the first week. Did they turn their assignments? Or are they in the class? And I'm like, not yet, but eventually, they'll get onto it and they'll get into it. But just really being gracious with the students, because like I said, we're all learning this. It was hard for me. It was hard for my team. We met like 3 or 4 times a week, because we're like, okay, so what did you do that maybe I could do, and try to, mix it up. And so just having grace. I know for certain the whole, what helped me, and I share with my students, what helped me was just having a designated space for school in the house. And I told him it doesn't have to be elaborate. My stuff wasn't elaborate. It was like right on the wall by Samuel's playpen, because Samuel was at home with me, and Vincent, he had to be on his, Zoom calls as well. And so Samuel's right there next to me. I got a picture board in the back, I'm writing on it and having them do that. So I just encourage parents to go ahead and try to make a space that's as comfortable as possible. Even in my classroom, like I would have pillows, little rocking chairs that they could sit in. So I'm like, they don't have to be like, sitting up straight at a table. Like I'm not even like that. Like I'm, relaxed here in the guest room. So right now I am. And so, and so I would encourage them, just try to give just a little bit of school, something where they can have all their supplies in one spot, because I did get annoyed when I'm like, okay, you guys, write this down, and I got kids disappearing because they're going to go get a pencil. Y'all knew when you signed into the Zoom what you was about to do. So now, at the beginning of the class, I need everybody to hold up a pencil, because y'all already know you're about to write. So just creating like just some sort of space that's just like, that reminds them, of school. And so they can feel just a little comfortable. But even with this fall, I know the fall is going to look way different than the spring, but I still think that piece of space is what's needed, because I had my little spot, and it stayed there. You know, every day, you know, I would go in and change the problem of the day or the word of the day or something. You know, I would change it a little bit, and then I would just, you know, leave it neat how it's supposed to be, and then go on and then just, you know, enjoy the rest of the house. But I do believe that that little bit of space, especially with virtual learning, that little bit of space is really, really important for them. And then maybe having conversations like at the beginning of the day with, you know, your kids, your children, about what the day could possibly look like, and then trying to encourage them that you might have to, or you will have to go with the flow, that things are going to change. Something might not be the same today as it's going to be tomorrow, or tomorrow might look different than the next day, and kind of just not expecting them to just adapt to change like that, but just to kind of get them to understand that, you know what, today may look a little different. So, and I have to say that to my nephew, since he's, you know, autistic, today might look a little bit different. And I even encourage my sister to tell him that in the morning, today's going to look a little bit different, but it still can be a great day, you know? And so far
Yeah.
what I can think of, I think that will definitely help.
No, I love that. I love having that connection with them daily, because I think it provides that the emotional connection that sometimes kids they look forward to having with a teacher, you know, outside the home. So I think that is really important. And I'm glad you said what you said about setting up the environment for them, because it's funny because my second grader, now she's going to third grade now. My third grader, when she, you know, her birthday was just this past Sunday. And, you know, she was like, I was like, what do you want for your birthday? What are you going to do? She's like, can I go back to school? And at first I was kind of like, you know, we're not doing the back to school shopping. But, you know, I realized that at that age, you know, first I'm like marking that off in my budget because I don't have to go buy all those supplies. But I realized, number one, that age, they're excited about getting that new backpack and, you know, getting those new pencils and the pencil bag and different things like that. But you gave me that idea to kind of spruce up her area, you know, where she's going to be, and maybe even for, you know, my seventh grader, you know, having something that, you know, gives a school feel to his area, and not just working at a plain desk. So I love that idea. Thank you.
Right.
All right, so now we're going to go to Miss Monica to talk about high schoolers. And I just had one of my high schoolers join the Zoom. So I think she will definitely be able to get something from what you have to share. So Miss Jaden is on the call. She will be a ninth grader.
Hey, Jaden.
So what advice do you have for those who are choosing virtual school for their high schoolers? What are some tips for success?
So I would say for parents of seniors to be flexible, because right now the seniors are dealing with a lot. Those students who are going into their last year of high school who may not be able to have what we would call a normal senior year. So parents, please be flexible and think about their social emotional state during this season, making sure that you create some type of awareness for them. I think communication is key when it comes to high school. As parents, we had pretty good communication with our parents, which made the year good. So I think communicating with the parents, also having some type of consistency for high schoolers. They need some consistency, because if you let them go a couple of days with not doing work, they get into the mode of, oh, okay, well, I'll do it next week, or I'll do it. No. Some type of consistency every single day, making sure those students are doing something. And so it needs to be some type of structure to it. So if your teacher's saying, okay, you check in with me on Mondays and Wednesdays at 10 o'clock, that student is checking in Mondays and Wednesdays at 10 o'clock, and not saying, oh, well, I'll check in next Monday. As a parent, if you need help with that, I know our school, we were really good about helping parents with calendars, times, calls, whatever they needed. And so making sure that those high schools have some consistency with getting up, logging in, and asking questions. A lot of times the high schoolers didn't really want to ask questions. So a lot of the calls that I made personally was because the kids like, well, I didn't want to say nothing because No, speak up. So making sure we communicate with our kids, let them know, hey, as a parent, I may not understand what the teacher's asking you to do. So you got to make sure you understand. If you don't, ask somebody. Communication, consistency, I think, and also some of those mental breaks. Kids gonna need some mental breaks in the Zoom calls. I know my second grade is going into 30, but during the spring, he was like, Mom, do I have to look at one more video? I'm so tired of these videos. So also giving those high schools some mental breaks, which may work well for all grade levels. That's what I did with my own children. I gave them schedules. Everybody had their own schedule, and everybody had time in there to take a break from it all, because it can be stressful. Working with my sister, like Diamond, I have to work with my sister because she's a single parent, and that's a lot of work on a single parent working their normal schedule as well as trying to have kids being at home and do schoolwork at the same time. So making sure that they take those mental breaks as well. So I'd say consistency, ask questions and communicate, especially when you're not clear on something.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And I'm going to ask a selfish question since I have my 9th grader on here. What advice do you give to an incoming high schooler about taking ownership for, their education and their relationship with the school counselor and things like that? I heard you mention, how sometimes students may be reluctant to ask questions because they're thinking I should already know that, or embarrassed to ask. So what advice would you have for an incoming freshman?
So this is going to be a very good opportunity for incoming freshmen to learn technology. A lot of them may or may not have dealt with the technology at this level. And so this is going to be a very good opportunity for them to do that, and making good connections and creating relationships with those people, the interventionists, the counselor, the specialists. This is a good opportunity because you can learn from all those people at the campus level. Not being afraid to ask whatever those necessary questions that you may not want to ask on a normal basis, but don't be afraid. Ask questions. There's no such thing as a no good question. And so I try to get even adults to learn that. When you don't understand something, ask a question. Make sure you get it understood at your level. Everybody don't understand the same way. And so make sure you get those questions answered.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. All right. So we're going to move on to this next question. This is open to anyone. What are your thoughts and advice for parents who will be, moving into the virtual school environment because they feel like, I'm not going to allow, my child to go back into school because I just want to choose the safest option possible, right? But they are working at home. We can kind of tackle that one first. They're working at home and having to be, accountable to their own company, their manager, having to focus on their work at their computer and their meetings, et cetera. But then also needing to make sure that their children are seen about, and anyone can answer that.
So what I did with my sister was I helped her to create a schedule for my nieces and nephews. That's one of the things that they can do, is have some type of schedule, some type of check-in where they are getting the assignments done. What I had them to do was list the assignments the teachers gave for the day for each class, and as they completed them, they checked them off. And one of them, who's a little, didn't want to work as much as I had them put the date and time. Okay, I completed this one at 10:52 on this date. And so some type of system of checks and balances.
Very good.
I also agree with the systems. The systems have to be in place, and it has to be consistency. And I'm so huge on communication. So communication. If you have because again, these younger babies, these kindergartners and first graders, I'm gonna be completely open. We'll likely do night school if her daddy can't handle it. If hubby can't handle it, we're gonna do school after our work. So just, again, the flexibility, trying new things. Like I said, we're going to try to do her doing school. We have her little desk set up next to my desk. So we're going to try her doing school with me. We've been practicing for summer school, and it's been going okay. So we're going to try it, but just being flexible. If you, everyone knows the level of flexibility for their jobs. So if you may need to take your break at a certain time, if you know that your lunch break may not normally be at the normal time that you would normally take it. Once school starts back. So just that flexibility, and not being unapologetically a parent. Don't beat yourself up about it and I have to go to work. If they have to go to school from 5:30 to 7, guess what? They got to go to school from 5:30 to 7. If they have to play all day so that you can get your job done because you have to pay bills, guess what? They gonna play all day, and then from 5:30 to 7, they know that's work time. So just not being tied down to a schedule. If you can, then great. You have the help. My heart has really been going out to single parents during this time because it's hard. I remember being a single parent, and I can't imagine having to navigate what's going on without my husband. So, parents just need to understand flexibility. Don't beat yourself up about it. Guess what? If you have meetings all day on Wednesdays, they may not be able to do work on Wednesdays, and it's okay. It's okay. Just not because that's when the mental and the emotional stuff starts to kick in when you're trying to badger yourself down. Oh, my child didn't get to check in today. We didn't get to go to school. And again, I know all teachers are not understanding. But as a parent, you just have to unapologetically say, you know what, I'm doing the best I can. I know on Wednesdays my schedule from 9 to 4 is meetings all day. We're not going to be able to do school on Wednesdays. But guess what? We're going to work our butts off Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. So just being honest and open with yourself and not beating yourself up about the decisions you have to make.
Right. I love that. I can attest to that because we homeschooled in the past. And so I was not a single parent, but I would be in the process of, well, not the process, but I'd be pregnant, then have a baby just came home, and then I'm nursing and all that. So I tried to adhere to a schedule as best I could. But at the end of the day, I looked at achievements. What was their level? Did they learn, their math, their multiplication tables and things like that? Did they learn their history facts? A homeschooling community. And but as far as scheduling, I'm not very good at scheduling. As my kids have gotten older, I have certain ones like Jaden, who's on the phone, on the Zoom now. She's naturally a schedule adherer. When I told them, I said, guys, I want y'all to, told her and her brother, I want y'all to join the Zoom at 7 o'clock. I told her that at 6:15, and at 7 o'clock, she was on the Zoom. So she naturally is a schedule person. I'm not. I relate to those who, may not be able to do a schedule because they're a single parent or they're working, or whatever. Now, what I realized also is that I can't use that as an excuse and not even try to have a schedule. So I had to find, a middle ground with that. So when school was in from March through May, we did have a schedule that I at least printed out. I might have forgot about it, but I had schedule adherers who kept us all on track. All right, I'm going to turn the attention to you guys, not just as educators, but as parents. So I've heard Chastity already kind of share a little bit about what her decision is, and I do want to hear more about that because she's talking about Addie going to school at night. I want to know more about that. Did you withdraw her from school? Are you doing your own curriculum? Monica, anyone else who's on the call, kind of share what your plans are for this coming school year. Chaz, you want to go first?
I will. I'm not afraid to admit that I'm all over the place when it comes to this school, okay, with my own child. So originally we had decided to withdraw her from the private school she was going to and place her in a charter school. And so because I really thought maybe this thing is gonna get better, okay. So, but after looking at the plan, that's another thing I probably failed to mention. Parents, please look at the plan that these districts and these schools are presenting. After looking at the plan for the charter school that we had opted for her to attend, they stated in their plan that kindergarten through third graders would not wear a mask. Well, not only will my child not be going during COVID, but she won't go at all because you're clearly making irresponsible decisions. So they said they would wear them in the hallway, but inside the classroom, they would not make the kids wear it. It was optional. Okay, so that school is off the table for forever. Forever, it's off the table. So the private school that she attended last year was already OCD over the top when it came to cleanliness, and their plan is to have a max the classes at 8 students per class. So if she has to go back, I'm really comfortable with her going back there. Another thing that I like that they put in the plan is that if we decide to do it we decide to let them do virtual school, that we get half off tuition. And so I think that was, really going a step above for them to offer that, because in the spring they didn't, but again, we were all winging it in the spring.
Mm-hmm.
So if we choose to do online schooling for her, it will only be half tuition for that grading period. And so, no, we don't know yet. If she goes, she's going to go to the private school. But I think we're going to try her first grading period at home.
All right. Thank you so much, Monica.
I'm sorry. I have an adult child too.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't want her to go back because she's asthmatic. But, when you're a fake adult, you do what you do. So she has decided that she's going back. And
I was going to ask that. She's going back.
If you get sick, you're on your own. I'm not driving to San Marcos for COVID. So if you get sick, because, fake adults make bad decisions sometimes. And so I've been able to keep her safe from March until now. But when you go, you're going to kick it with your friends. You're going to, go with your sorority sisters. You're going to do all that. And so, yeah, she's going back to school.
Wow, I've heard that's the case with a lot of college students, and I'm not there yet as far as having to have that type of trust in God. I mean, I have my faith quakes, my faith challenges, that He's presented. That's not one right now. I don't know how I would handle that. My daughter's school, they sent out and her school is in Georgia. They sent out an email saying that they're operating at 33% capacity, classrooms and dorms, and they were asking kids to only come if they had upper level classes where they had to access labs and art studios. So we, at that point, we had kind of already made the decision before then, but she's going to start out doing e-learning, but she's a freshman too. So I understand that, people who have parents who have kids who are upperclassmen, like you said, they are fake adults, and, they they have to learn. They have to learn sometimes the hard way, but my prayer is that they won't. God will cover them this school year. So praying for your baby, Chastity.
Thank you. She's 21, so I'm letting her do what she want to do.
21. Wow. They'll be all right. All right, Monica, I'm gonna let you share next, and kind of where are you on your decision with your kiddos? I know you have different ages as well.
So my babies are not going back to school. We will take the online option. And Rodney and I are a little different. Rodney is more laid back, so the schedules the kids don't have to necessarily adhere to, but as long as they get the work done, he's fine. So that's how some of the parents are working. And as long as they get the work done and they understand they're asking questions, that's fine. I'm a little bit more structured, which, that works. But our kids are not going back to school. Even if they offer the in-person, I think they're doing, you have to sign up before today, like today. So our kids, I do have a senior though. So she's like Chastity's daughter. She wants to go to school. It's her last year. So she is, we're praying in that area right now because I'm trying to let her know that, that's not a good decision. And I don't want to have to put our foot down on that, but if we have to, we will, because she's not. And so, so that's a struggle right now, trying to come up with ideas to make this year for her online experience a great experience. So if y'all have any ideas, please share, because she's adamant about her senior year. So, so we're not going back to school.
Yeah, thank you.
I report back already. So, we have to go back. And so I actually have to go back in the campus. I'm back at work now, but I have to go actual to the campus on next week. Now,
Thank you.
go into the campus next.
Thank you, ladies. I know, I mean, like I was saying earlier at the beginning of the call, I know some of the moms are just joining. So we have 3 educators that have kind of been on our panel today: Ms. Chastity Armstead, Monica Crawford, and Diamond Dotson. They have experience teaching all the way from pre-K up to high school. And Monica is a counselor. Chastity is a former principal and currently teaching 5th grade, going into 5th grade this year. And Diamond has taught pre-K and kinder and moving into 5th grade this year. So we've kind of talked about their perspective as educators, and then we moved into talking about their perspective as parents and what their decisions are. I want to continue the conversation for at least 20 or 30 minutes or so, just allow our other moms who have joined to ask questions, kind of share what your concerns are, if you want to share what your plans are. What are your kind of conflicts that you have, either because you're a single parent or because you and your spouse work outside the home. So I want to open that up now for anyone else who would like to share before we get off of our call. I have a question as y'all are kind of deciding if you want to share anything or not. I know some of you have children that are daycare age. And just want to find out if any of you have had any experience where you had to send your child to daycare and you found that, things were okay with the way that the school has decided to go about social distancing and things like that. Anyone have experiences with having younger children in daycare?
I did. I am an essential worker. I'm a physician, so I have to work. So there was a period where everything was shut down, and I had to have something to do with my kids because, I work outside the home. My husband works outside the home. So at that time, they did have the YMCA. Several of the Ys in the area had space just for essential workers' kids. So they limited the numbers, and they did do social distancing. So I felt like the YMCA did a good job as far as that. Now, that's different from the summer program that they have now. They've since changed some things and they're less stringent. So I can't speak to that, but that was prior to the beginning of June, basically. So I was actually between that school and then there's a children's courtyard. There's several children's courtyards in Grand Prairie, but there's one that they had gone to before. Well, I found out, I made the decision for the Y, but I found out the very next week that Children's Courtyard had 3 kids positive for COVID, not even 1 week after they had opened back up, because they had closed for a while and then they reopened. So I don't think that they were probably socially distancing the same, they didn't take it to the same level as the YMCA did. I really don't. I can't say for sure, but yeah.
So we were talking a little bit earlier about kind of what reasonable measures can a school or daycare put in place. I heard you mention about the YMCA and kind of the protocols they had initially and then what was changed. What did you notice that was different between those two approaches?
Right, so the number of children. So the first time they were limited to 19 kids. And they made sure that the ratio, was very, very low to the number of teachers and just the number of people in the building. They did temperature checks every day and they did hand sanitizer and they made sure they did, arts and crafts and different things that each child could do on their own where they didn't have to share supplies and things like that. Once I think the regular summer school opened, it was not as stringent. They had more children, masks were optional. They shared sometimes devices. There was a tech course that they did. So, they shared devices versus before you couldn't share devices. You either brought your own or they would provide one and sanitize it. So I think there was a difference there.
Okay, thank you for sharing. So you bring 2 perspectives, being an essential worker, and then also being a physician. So
Yes.
I'm going to turn it, from us kind of talking about education and schools and making those decisions, and put you on the spot if you don't mind.
That's fine.
Share, kind of where you are with this, of, number one, not being able to really make that choice
Right.
of work from home, and then having to decide what's best for your children. Because what grades are they in?
So rising 5th grade and rising 2nd grade. So I have a boy and a girl. So it's a very difficult decision for me. I want to keep my kids at home, but there's no one here. I considered actually hiring someone as a tutor / nanny, whatever you want to call them, but I don't even know if the districts will allow that. In the state of Texas, from what I understand, homeschool is different from the online learning, but I think there may be rules as to who can, a parent is fine, but can you pay somebody to do that? I don't know how that works, and does that apply to the online learning? So can I hire someone to be that person with my kid during the day? Is that legal?
Have you all heard about that? My educators, have you all heard any restrictions about that as far as?
So what was your question, Erica? You want to know if?
So basically, I can't be at home. I would like for my children to do the distance learning or online learning, but that means I would essentially have to hire somebody to come into my home to be there, because like you said, it's going to be more stringent than it was in the spring. You got to log on probably at a certain time, be there. In the spring, we could kind of fudge it and do some stuff, but now it's going to be your time is accounted for. So I will need somebody over their shoulder, making sure that they're logged in, doing what they're supposed to be doing. Is that legal? Does that person who assists with the online learning have to be the parent, or okay?
No, because some of the middle school kids will actually be just doing it, solo. Middle school and high school, they're going to be just doing it on their own. And then Texas is a state that definitely supports homeschool. So whether you're doing it virtually or whether you're hiring somebody to come in and teach your kids, aside from doing it virtually, as long as that person, has credentials to do that, then you're
right.
Good. Yeah, you're good.
Okay, so does that same thing, hold true for the online? So I know for the homeschool, you have to have the credentials. Is it the same thing?
I don't think for online, because the teachers should be doing, and I think that's what I was really trying to express to the parents. The teachers should be doing the bulk of the teaching, unlike it was in the spring.
Okay.
Like in summer school, I'm actually in front of my computer from 8:30 to 12:30 every day, Monday through Friday. Whether I'm teaching a lesson or whether I'm just there, they're doing independent practice, and I'm there to answer questions. So know that if there's a teacher they're teaching, you can, like you said, a nanny or a babysitter could be there with the kids. So it doesn't have to be anybody that's, licensed or certified or anything if they're going to be doing the virtual learning.
They just need the supervision. I was just saying they need the supervision.
Yes.
Right. Well, and then, so my 5th grader, yes, I think she's good. Now that 2nd grader, but we'll see.
Right. And then you mentioned for homeschooling that they need to have credentials, but to homeschool your children, you don't.
Okay, I thought I read that, but that's why I was asking.
And I think that would, because my thing is, if you're gonna pay somebody, you want to make sure it's done right. Well,
yeah, I would still do that.
If it's your child, you're gonna want to go. You're gonna make sure it's done right. But we know that everybody doesn't operate in integrity, and so if they're following the virtual curriculum, I don't, you could hire somebody that's going to college online, and that they just need the extra money coming in and and sit with the kids while they do that school time. So.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. One other question I have is about activities. I know for Mansfield School District, we just I asked a question. I see you laughing, Chastity. I just asked a question about whether the kids will be able to participate in their activities. It was very vague, ambiguous, on the website, but they had an email where we could submit questions, because there's tons of questions. And so the response that I got is, as far as they know right now, of course, everything's subject to change. They have to put that on there, that they can participate in sports, arts activities, and things like that if they choose virtual, at least for now. But this is just an open question for you guys on what level of comfort would you have for them participating in those sports? And then I'd like to hear Erica's thoughts on that also as a physician. Just thought about whether you would allow that. Is it wise, or should we just kind of say forfeit this year till we get everything to settle down?
My level of comfort is zero. I stepped out on I don't want to call it faith. I stepped out on foolishness at the beginning of cheer season. My 6-year-old tried out for a competitive cheer team, the best team in the country. So it was hyped up. And so she made hard team to make. She made the team. Tryouts were flawless. First week of practice, they had 2 cases. 2 cases turned into 39 cases. So 39 competitive cheerleaders tested positive for COVID, 3 coaches. And so that shook me to my very core.
That was tough.
So,
wow.
Yeah. So we stopped. I pulled her from the team for the season, told them if y'all will have us back next season, because again, it's really hard to get in. If y'all have us back next season, if everything's better, we love to come. But right now, I just can't risk it. After a week, 39 kids.
That's ridiculous.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just couldn't risk it.
Because how can they be this, especially with cheerleading?
You on top. I mean, y'all up there in the air, and then somebody.
Stunning. Yeah. And then her coach sent us a video. She sent the parents a video. So the gym ended up closing for 3 weeks, and they just opened back up this week. Her coach sent us a video, and she's like, I can't keep them away from each other. I've tried everything. I put X's on the floor. I've done this. And the girls, that team was ages 5 to 8. She's like, I can't keep them away from each other. Everything I've touched, she was like, parents, talk to them because they won't stay away from each other.
She just have to call it a loss.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's like, I know she probably wants to make it work and hope that it can make it work, but, I think it's a selfish decision, that it's best to not even offer it, because it's like you're putting a carrot out there by saying we still have it, and then the parents have to grapple and make the decision, and the kids are like, yeah, of course I want to do it.
Yeah,
so I wish a lot of the groups would just say, we're just not going to offer it.
This is a gym of about 2,600 athletes, so
wow.
they're not gonna stop. And I mean, they may have lost a few hundred, which really didn't put a dent in it for them. But I just wasn't willing to put her life in danger for cheerleading. I hate to say it like that. I know cheerleading is serious to some people, but for cheerleading, we're not gonna catch COVID at cheerleading. We're not.
Right. Right. Very smart. Very smart. What about from a medical perspective, Erica?
So I mean, honestly, I'm going to be honest, you guys. And my background, I'm internal medicine, but immunology. So I deal with the immune system. I worked at the CDC, did viruses as my subspecialty. Kids can't social distance. I don't care how many X's you put on the ground, how much hand sanitizer. Even to me, the thought of the hybrid, 2 days a week was ridiculous. There's so many high touch surfaces in the schools. Right. You're going to have cases. So I'm actually more concerned with, and I haven't seen, so when there's a positive case, what happens as far as, quarantine and what have you. But exactly what she was saying, there's going to be positive cases. Now, you have to decide for your family if you're going to just accept that risk in the people inside your bubble are, of certain type of health, and you feel like, okay, it's an acceptable risk, we're going to do it. And I feel like a lot of people have that, but that means you probably can't see grandma, grandpa, you're going to be distancing from them for a very long time. From the medical perspective, kids can contract the virus. They usually do well. Most kids do well. We'll hear about some rare, because schools are going to open. So you're going to hear about a rare case, somebody with an immune system problem, something where, kid doesn't do so hot, but that's probably going to be rare. The thing I'm more concerned about is kids can contract it and spread it. So who's at home? So you can do everything you want to do, while you're at the practice, but that kid has to come home. How is mom and dad's health? How, if there's somebody else in the home, a grandparent or a sick, child or something like that, you got to think about that bubble. And once one person steps out of that bubble, the whole bubble is exposed. So, so people who send their kids to school, be prepared that there's going to be positive cases. And probably, more likely than not, if you continue to do it and the schools don't shut down, it will come to your front door. So if you're okay with that, then that's fine. But most kids do well. We haven't seen a lot of this, post-inflammatory or Kawasaki or multi-system. The kids generally do okay. It's who the kids give it to. And then, so the studies also show that on average, adults transmit the virus very well to other adults. We can also transmit the virus to children. But studies show that kids are not that effective in transmitting the virus from themselves to adults. So there is some protection there. It's about a 50% reduction down to, anywhere between a 33 to 50% reduction. And they're not necessarily passing it on to each other as much either, but there is still a risk. So yeah, I think the takeaway is, you can engage in these, I don't think they should have sports, but you can engage in these activities, but who's in your bubble? So that's point one. And then the bigger point is society as a whole. Right now the hospitals are at almost at surge capacity. So do we really want to start spreading? Because that's what's going to happen. And I'm not Chicken Little crying, the sky is falling, but you really want to make sure that the hospitals can handle the load. And I don't think at this point Dallas is there.
Yeah.
So my child, he does flag football. We didn't do it this year. My daughter, she doesn't do competitive cheer, but she was on the cheer squad. This year, we're just going to sit it out, because if I'm going to do homeschool or online learning, why would I do, cheer? Why would I do football? It's going to be still stepping outside the bubble.
Yeah. Right. Thank you so much for that perspective. Yeah. And it's even more difficult for those who have older kids in sports.
It's so hard.
And it's so hard to tell them, you can't participate. No, I'm sorry, you may not be able to, do this sport this year. It's so hard. And so, as I was talking earlier about just praying for that understanding for teachers and schools to have understanding for the parents and all of their things that we're dealing with, not only the logistics that we're working through, but the anxiety, the stresses of having to make all these decisions, just the fear of the unknown, all of that, and watching the behaviors of our children change. Because I don't know if you guys notice it, but I see a difference, in how my kids relate to other people, and just looks on their faces and things like that. And that's kind of my prayer through all of this, because most of us are, resilient, we'll be fine. But I'm just praying that we can, tap into those areas where they may be struggling, psychologically, spiritually, because they probably are just like, what is going on? The world that I used to be able to somewhat trust, I feel like I can't. And they may not be talking to us, right? Telling us, what their fears are and what their concerns are. And so I'm praying, for those kids at all levels. We have the specifics of the little ones, what they're dealing with, the older ones, and, how they're dealing with everything. And, on the computer all day in the summer, and, but so my prayer and my encouragement to parents is to really try to talk to the kids as much as possible, to find out what's on their hearts. How is all this affecting them? Where are they mentally and spiritually through all of that? So any other questions? Anybody want to come on video or ask in the chat? We're going to get ready to wrap up here in a minute. I want to thank all of our educators for being on to share your advice, your expertise. And thank you, Erica, for sharing from a medical perspective. I will save this recording. If there's any part of the recording that you would like for me to take out, because I want to be sensitive to anybody's, privacy, anything that they would not like to be shared on the video, just send that to me personally and I will edit that out. Otherwise, I'll save it all and I will share it in our group. We have a group called Virtual Girls Night In. We try to do our Girls Night In. We have been doing them every week once quarantine first started, just to kind of have something to look forward to. We slowed down over the past month. We had a death in the family, and so I kind of took a break. But going forward, I want to try to do at least twice a month, the first and the third Thursday of the month, for us to get together and kind of talk about topics that we're dealing with. The next one that I want to have is going to be about race relations. So I'm going to invite a couple of ladies that I've been talking to, who we've been talking through just kind of, the whole white fragility and, white privilege and Black Lives Matter and things like that. So that's what we're going to be doing on the first Thursday in August. So looking forward to that. But again, anybody have any questions about our topic for today? Anything they want to throw out?
I just want to understand. I heard, everyone's concerns about returning to school, but I honestly feel my grandchildren are going to learn absolutely nothing unless they're in a classroom. However, I don't want them to bring COVID home. And that's my concern at this point. I haven't heard anything from their school.
So you're leaning towards sending them back, but you're concerned about the risk.
Yeah, I don't feel like they're going to learn.
If they're at home.
Yeah, I just.
How do they do with hygiene? Do they wear masks? Do they wash hands? How are they with that?
They're taught to. Yeah, they do. We don't really take them out much, but when we do, they have to wear a mask. That sometimes we'll look up and one of them is taking it off.
Mm-hmm.
But washing hands, they've got. We're pretty on top of that. Yeah.
Well, definitely if you send them back, I would make sure that you practice with them, the hygiene. My kids can do a surgical scrub if they need to. But and then practice wearing masks. My daughter will wear it, whether or not the school district requires it, but maybe they will still do it. My daughter will wear a mask easily. My son, again, the 7-year-old, it's always hanging from his ear, something has happened. Oh, I couldn't keep it on, but maybe practicing with that. And then I don't know, educators, what the plan is. They said there's going to be sanitizers, but, does each student have their own? Should parents, even I thought that, maybe each kid needs to have their own. Parents need to start, not really stockpiling sanitizer, but having it available so that your student can have his or her own sanitizer and, have the sanitizer breaks and whatever, every so often.
Well, we've always sent him with his own sanitizer. That's how
good. Yeah, the kids seem to be conditioned about that sanitizer already.
And all of that, and he used them. So hopefully. So
maybe that plus the mask, and my kids, as soon as they get home from anywhere, they don't really go anywhere but outside, but washing the hands. And then maybe change the clothing as soon as, I'm thinking of things to minimize risk if you send them back. Even me, I wear scrubs at work now. When I get home, I take the scrubs off, or really before I leave work, I take those off and I put on other clothes. And then I, don't, wash the scrubs with only my own thing. But maybe when they get home, immediately showering, taking off those clothes, putting those clothes in a designated pile. If you're really concerned about mitigating any kind of possible spread, obviously, just like everyone, keeps saying, do go through nightly if you have to. I do nightly and wash all the high touch surfaces. I do the, refrigerator door handles, the microwave, the light switch, the doorknobs. I do that at least once a day. Because kids do touch things, remote controls, what have you. But my kids know as soon as they hit that door, it's either shower or washing hands, change clothes, so have school clothes versus house clothes, that sort of thing. If you just have to send them back, then that's one way to keep them safe.
Yeah, that's that idea. Yeah, I'm doing that with mine who work.
Yeah.
Started that, when they come in, he's like, all right, go take a shower, put those clothes in the washer. He's a stickler about that. Yeah, that's really good. And then also I think, Tashika, it would be good for you to really press on that school to go ahead and let what their decision is, and recommendation be involved, kind of like we have to do with the government, with politics. We have to continue to make and press them to make good decisions, especially safety, because there's probably lots of other parents who are in your shoes who feel like, this is not going to work with them being at home. And so they need to hear your voice in making those decisions for safety.
Yes, that today I had decided to start that, but it's on the list. So I was like, okay, I need to start reaching out to the director, find out what's going on.
Yeah, find out. And if it's a smaller school, maybe they do, maybe they'll be, is it a smaller school that they attend?
Well, the preschool was, but when
Okay.
you go over to the campus in Capel, it is not. I mean, it's, I don't know how many students they have there, but I suspect that a lot of parents are not going to want to send their child. And so I know that when this started, my grandson's preschool, we were still sending him to school, and there were his class that had like 20 in it. There were probably 3 there.
Oh, okay. So you may luck out.
Right.
Yeah. And I don't want to make it seem like all doom and gloom. There are other countries who have been able to open schools. Now they don't have the numbers we have, but they found that it is the elementary school, age children that do better. Once you're 16 and up, they're just like adults. They communicate the virus very easily. We talked about the high schoolers. But the lower grades, in some countries, only the high school and the colleges closed. They never closed the elementary and did okay. Again, they don't have as wide of a, community transmission as we have now. But, it's not all doom and gloom. It is still possible. So if you look up and there's not a lot of kids, if they just practice the hygiene, really when they get home as well, doing all those things, you may be okay.
And they were doing that beforehand, and I was very, very impressed with the cleanliness at the school. So
good.
Yeah, all this COVID-19, washing the hands and scrubbing, I've been doing that since last year, only because I had a newborn. I had my son last August, and so I was on maternity leave. But there has not been a school year that I can think of besides this year. There has not been a school year that I haven't gotten sick and going back to school. Because, kids, they bring in different germs and whatnot. And so this year I was completely determined to not get sick. So I started the school year, of course, later. But, I mean, every single time we walked into the house, my husband and I, we would just wash our hands because we work at the same school. So we washed our hands up to the elbows. I mean, we had extra clothes to change clothes, but I wore like an apron type thing at school.
Okay, good.
For most days. So I really didn't I guess have anything, or I always have like on a jacket or something, just something over my clothes. So when I saw Samuel, I could just take off whatever it is, wash my hands and whatnot, and go towards him. And I'm pretty sure that's what I know for sure I would require my students to do, wash your hands. Because kids, they touch everything, they touch each other, and they just bring in every single piece of germ.
Now for the educators, did any of the school districts say what their plans are if there's a positive case? Do they shut the whole class down? Has there been any communication?
No, those are my questions, because I'm like, if that is to happen, do I go on sick leave for 2 weeks? How is that am I gonna be, is that gonna be deducted from me? Like, what's gonna happen with the other teachers that I've come in contact with? What's gonna happen with the 60 some odd students? Because I'm I'm departmentalized. So my kids, they rotate through 3 classes. So I'm like, that's 60 something students that's gonna have to be quarantined. Whoever they've been in contact with have to be quarantined. And, myself, other teachers that I've come in contact with, like, we're all gonna have to.
We don't know.
So I'm waiting.
Are y'all still rotating, Diamond?
Yes, ma'am. We're still rotating.
Yeah, it was real interesting to read the guidelines from TEA, where there was nothing sure. It was just we will try to, as much as possible, if possible. And that goes back to what I was saying earlier. I know behind the scenes, you guys are still waiting for instructions, and you're having, staff developments and meetings and trying to figure it out. And that's all the more reason that many people are just saying, we're just going to wait it out. I was also in a conversation with some friends the other day talking about, from what I understand, some school districts are saying once you choose
Yes.
or virtual, you can't change it until either the end of the semester or end of the grading period. And I said, if that were me choosing in person, and it came to a point where it became really uncomfortable and they were saying, well, you can't, change until the end of the school grading period, I would just withdraw and homeschool. And, I'd just be an official homeschooler, and then I would re-enroll them later. And anyone who ever, felt like they needed to do something like that, it's not as difficult as a lot of people think, as far as withdrawing and choosing to homeschool and then putting your child back in school. I think one of the reasons is because, school districts are paid based on the number of kids. So they're not going to put a whole bunch of fight up to have a kid enrolling in a school. So each time we homeschooled and, put the kids back in school, it was just a matter of us producing the report card. I think one of the schools requested or required the kids to take an assessment test to make sure they were on the right grade level. It was as simple as that. So if I did, put the kids in person and became uncomfortable, with the drop of a hat, I would just go ahead and withdraw them and homeschool if they wouldn't allow me to do virtual, and then I'll re-enroll them later. So we always have that option, especially here in Texas.
That's good to think about. You all really don't know how beneficial this, just listening to everyone and what they are doing and the suggestions have been.
Yeah. That's what we do with the girls' night in. But Tashika, take a break. I see you with your stress ball. Give them a break. Giving them a break will give yourself a break. And I'm sure, as Dr. Erica would probably remind all of us, make sure that you, as well as your children, are beefing up on your immune system, the vitamin C, the vitamin D. So whether they're going back to school or college or not, make sure that you're being consistent with that. With that being said, we are going to go ahead and close out for this evening. Again, I want to say thank you to Diamond Dotson, Chastity Armstead, and Monica Crawford, our educators who joined our panel this evening. Thank you so much for giving up your time, and our prayers are with you and for you and your families for this coming school year. And as we get ready to close tonight, I want to go ahead and say a prayer. Lord, we thank you, God, for our children. We thank you for our educators, Lord God, for all that are involved in making decisions for how things will go this school year, God. I just want to take a moment just to acknowledge the fact that you are sovereign, that you are all-knowing, and you are all-powerful, you're all-loving. So in the midst of all the things that we are considering, everything that is before us, everything that is known and unknown, we know that there's one thing that we do know for sure, and that is you have us all in your hands and in your care. So whatever decisions are made, whatever decisions have to be made that are difficult, that you would help us not walk in fear. Help us to ultimately trust that everything we will face for this coming school year and for our future will work together for our good and for your glory. I pray, God, that you would give each of us peace. I pray over our children as they are experiencing everything as it relates to this pandemic, and that you would give them a sense of hope and a sense of trust in you, that you hold their future. There's nothing they can do to control their future, but they can make the choice to put their futures in your hands. And I pray that same thing for us as parents, that we would not fret, that we would not walk in fear or anxiety, that we would do what it is that you call us to do, which is to follow and trust you as you lead us day by day. We don't know the outcome of the next 100 days or the next 7 days even. But we can trust you, God, for daily bread and for daily grace. And that is what I pray over our teachers, our children, all the parents, and all the administrators, everyone involved, as we consider, as we make plans for this coming school year. We will trust you. And I thank you that you are so good and that you are so able to give us the peace that we so desire. Help us to walk out each day knowing, Father, that you have good for us and you have good for our children. And for that, we say thank you. In Jesus' name, amen. All right, well, thank you, ladies, for joining. I appreciate all of our educators who were on with us tonight, giving us some valuable tips about things to consider when deciding whether to send our kids back to school in person or to select the virtual option. And then also some tips for parents who are choosing the virtual option, how to be efficient, how to help our children manage their time, and how to be most successful in their virtual learning. And then also helping children and parents to manage their schedules when parents have to work at home or outside the home while the children are doing school. So thank you guys again for joining. I appreciate your time, and I look forward to seeing you next time on Virtual Girls Night In. Bye-bye.